Welcome, everyone. Welcome, one and all. For those of you joining live, Becca, hey there, welcome. Thank you for being here. And for those of you joining on the recording, welcome to our third meeting of Source Simplified. Cheers to you and your favorite beverage. I appreciate each of you being here. You, Becca, live, whoever else joins live, thank you for choosing to spend your time in this way out of all the other things you could be doing for whatever reason, live or on the recording. You're here now, so acknowledging you for the efforts to be here. And we'll begin today, like we began last week, with a contemplative meditation. So your eyes may remain open or closed, whatever you feel comfortable with. And we are welcoming, saying yes, an unconditional yes to all that arises. This is what one of my a teacher of his, he said, meditation is a universal yes to whatever arises. This is Francis Lucille. And so there's no doing, there's no really any real effort at all required by us in this space, because meditation is more really what we are instead of what we do. Which to me, that's quite liberating. I'm not trying to figure something out. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm not trying to even achieve, quote unquote, liberation or enlightenment. I'm just, what can I call that? What name could I really give to what we are, what this is? I arrived here in Chicago last night to visit with my fiance's family for her aunt's 50th birthday, and outside Chicago Airport, the airport code is ORD for Chicago O'Hare Airport. And I don't know what the marketing team at Chicago O'Hare meant, if they meant what I think they meant when I read this sign, but it said, "Welcome to extraordinary Chicago," and the ORD in ordinary was highlighted because that's the airport code. And I've always loved this word, extraordinary. Really, let's look at that word. It's extraordinary. It's super ordinary, a whole bunch of ordinary. And I appreciate that, especially when I do find myself seeking or looking for something. I go, maybe what I'm looking for is what this is. It's just so obvious that its obviousness is the only reason, its ordinariness is the only reason I ever seem to overlook it.
I love that too. That ordinary seen. It seems that it's seen through the eyes of, seen from maybe the eyes are more wide open to see. So much of this whole stuff seems to me to require on the seeing, and whether we see inside without eyes, or we use our eyes a lot to see, and then we know that our perspective can change, so the ordinary becomes extraordinary through our opening and seeing through this other perspective. What must it like to be blind? It's so bizarre, because to me, because I paint and I garden, and the visual is like, it's everything to me. And yet somebody who's blind could have just as much sensory input as anything. But that seeing the extraordinary, the ordinary becoming extraordinary, is, I'm sure it's just this little shift of seeing a sort of relaxing and opening or something, of letting in the view, which sort of shows you the beauty or the miracle version of the ordinary.
I love to hear that you're a painter, because so I imagine this is your piece right behind you.
No, my partner paints way
Oh,
more
okay.
than I do. My
So yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a little story, which this synchronicity is really mind blowing to me. I was thinking about this as I was looking at this painting when I came to sit down. Uh, so first of all, I think that what you just said about the ordinary becoming the extraordinary. I write poetry, and I do these meditations and things like this, and I think that that place of creativity is where what we're talking about comes from. It's like, where does I imagine that your partner, as he was sitting there painting that, although maybe he was looking at, it looks like there's some water and a creek or something. I imagine that maybe that was real, but his ability, her ability, their ability to take that and then put that, I believe it requires relaxing, and it's a mystery. It's actually a mystery. Like, where does my poetry come from? I don't know. I just kind of sit down and have an idea, and then literally comes through.
It does.
And to me,
I
that's
think
this what you're speaking of here.
uh, yes, there is that amazing point. Um, to me with mine, it's like, I'd say it's a conversation that goes on with my hand and the paint and the surface of what I'm painting on. So color, shape, hand, eye, and I'm kind of slightly removed sometimes, where if my intellectual side just takes a step back, this flow seems to just evolve. It's like being present at the unfolding of the universe, only it's on your board. and it,
Well,
but
there's like a subtlety, right? There's like a sensitivity and a dropping into
it
listening.
must
I
be like
find it
that
to be like a listening almost. I'm
yeah.
listening for like, okay, how is this gonna, yeah.
Your words with poetry must, I mean, my dad wrote, and I know sometimes he would say, I don't know where that came from, I don't know how that happened, and yet something happens, doesn't it? And I'm sure it's just this, the undoing, the unknown, the letting go of the chattering mind, the surface add-on stuff that we have to our inner self, and then it allows this beautiful movement to come out, express itself.
Yes. Yeah. Mm. Well, I didn't know that I was going to do this as part of the contemplative meditation today, but that's how great art comes through, right? Where is this coming from? Why am I getting this inspiration? So, um, you know this, and for some of you, I'll fill you in because Becca was on at the tail end of our last meeting last week. I made an invitation to her and to Laura. This was offline. We stopped the recording to for everything we do throughout the week to be an offering. And something quite significant happened in my life this past week on November 12th, and the synchronicities here, Becca, it's gonna blow my I'm not a betting man, but my speculation is that this will likely blow your mind in the best possible way, in a like a profound way too. My dear uncle, who's the other than my father, my birth father, my godfather, who's my uncle, he's my godfather. He passed away. He left his body on November 12th, peacefully, very miraculously peacefully, at least based on the condition he had and what he was dealing with. It was incredible how he left naturally and peacefully. And he was a painter. So he painted over 1,000, I mean, at least 1,000. I don't even, and his artwork's all over the world. His name, you can look it up for anyone that wants to look it up. His name's James Regan. James Regan. And beautiful watercolor, mostly watercolors was his thing. But he also, in his older age, he had so many of these paintings that sometimes he didn't know what to do with them. He would have art shows, and he had a gallery, and he would sell them, of course. But he would rip up his old paintings and then make collages, and
Beautiful.
beautiful collages. Talk about recycling, and
Yeah.
we're like really collages to the point where when you see it from far away, you cannot even tell that it's a collage until you get up close. You're like, oh my God, that's ripped up pieces of paper. So the man was an artistic genius and just one of the most kind human beings, like just the embodiment of generosity. And so the thing that I'm surprised that I'm going to be doing, but I'm going to do it, is I'm going to share his eulogy here. It's somewhat short, but the reason I want to share it with you, Becca, and whoever else sees the recording, is because, well, to honor my uncle first and foremost, to honor his spirit, his life, but also I feel that life and death is my in breath and my out breath. It's this moment. It's so applicable to the meditative path, to the spiritual path, and of course, it's this intersection where I got to sit down and ask Holy Spirit, God, universe, my uncle, to help me write this thing, and it just sort of spilled through. So I'm going to grab that. I'll just be one
Yeah, go
moment,
for it.
and
Yeah.
this will be part of our meeting today. Excuse me. It's right here. So the the invitation that I would make in receiving this, as I receive it too, is that although I am speaking of the man, the spirit, the soul, my uncle James Regan, I also feel that the sentiment here, if we choose, can apply to ourselves, to our loved ones, to anyone, to everyone. If anyone were to ask, what does the embodiment of unconditional love, kindness, and generosity look like? My immediate response would be, that is Uncle Jim. Uncle Jim is many things to many of us: a brother, cousin, godparent, dear friend, beloved son, and of course, an uncle and a great uncle. But above all, Uncle Jim is something more special than all these roles. He is an angel. Not just now as he looks upon us after he has left his body, but also during his time here with us. He was and is an angel of planet Earth. I know of no one that could have handled what he did in his life especially in his later years, with the medical conditions he dealt with such grace, authenticity, kindness, and of course, his light-hearted sense of humor, which is a trademark of Uncle Jim's personality. Although one of Uncle Jim's primary passions were his glorious paintings, what seemed most important to him above all else is his family. Whether it be a phone call on a birthday, sharing a relaxed moment to just be together, I often got the sense that when I would be with Uncle Jim, that there was no other time or place to be other than right where we are, being in presence with each other. So there are truly no words or stories I could offer to do justice to Uncle Jim and the love we feel for him in our hearts and the impact that he had in all of our lives. However, after Uncle Jim heard the eulogy I shared at the service for Matt, that's my cousin, a few years ago, my uncle asked me if I could write his eulogy. He also requested of me a unique task in a classic Uncle Jim sort of style. He asked if I could also read to him his own eulogy that I would write. As miraculous as this might sound, deep within my heart, I know that I am reading his eulogy to him right now. Although he is no longer in his body, which we are so familiar with relating to him, he still hears these words now. He still sees each of us in this room, in that room, right now, more intimately than we might be able to imagine. He feels our love. He is closer to us than he has ever been. We no longer need to travel any physical distance to be with him. We can be with him right now, within the love we feel for him in our hearts. There is Uncle Jim. Right there. Right here. In our hearts. In our jokes. In our smiles. Our hugs. Our phone calls. Our connections. Our tears. He is always with us. Now. And forever. I place my faith in the prayer that the gleaming spark of light-hearted joy that burns so deeply in the heart of Uncle Jim continues to live on in our own hearts, so that we may share this kindness, this generosity, and love with each other in our own way. What a blessing beyond words you are to all of us here, Uncle Jim. Thank you for being with us as you were. Thank you for being with us as you are. Thank you for teaching us that we can love deeper than we knew was possible. Thank you for reminding us not to sweat the small stuff. Thank you for reminding us that we are always loved, cared for, and looked after, no matter how far away from each other we might be, and no matter how far away we may be from you now. Let us reflect this gift of love that you have given so freely back to you with how we share our love with each other. Thank you, Uncle Jim. Thank you for reminding us that we are never alone. We love you so much. With all our hearts, thank you. For in both your life and in death, you are always bringing us together, reminding us of the most sacred bond, the bond of sweet love itself. Thank you. We love you, Uncle Jim.
It's still hard though.
Yeah.
My dad died a year ago.
Yeah.
My mum before that. And oh, with Dad,
Yeah.
it was the freedom, the space. He flew. He just flew. Absolutely amazing. And I could feel the space inside, just massive space. And he'd had a stroke and couldn't get out of his chair for 8 years, I think. Painter, amazing painter, amazing musician, poet. But all of those things you said have absolutely been how it's felt for me with him. And I did some paintings that I absolutely feel as though he was involved big time, almost to the point where they don't look like my work. I love
Wow.
them because they have him in them so much. And I know he guided my hand, and I
Mm.
know it's absolutely amazing. All the stuff you've just said is just like, oh, my dad, dear dad. He was a tricky man. He was a kind of genius. So, blimey.
Yeah. Yeah.
He um he had a good sense of humor, but it was sharp. He
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
your wits
Same.
about you.
Same with my uncle. Yeah. Clever. Clever as a
Yeah.
whip. Sharp
Oh,
as a whip.
sometimes a bit brutal.
Yeah. Hey.
But well,
Yeah.
sweetheart, yeah. Well, that's so beautiful. That absolutely. And I think as soon as you look at these things with your heart open, it everything can come forward like that. That's a beautiful bit of writing. It really just completely touched me here about my dad and my mum, and that's how I feel about them both. I feel their presence. I feel that
Yeah.
yes, he's closer. He could be very remote. He would keep us at arm's length a lot of his life, but not now. So all that's gone.
Now
He
he's
just
closer than close, huh?
really close. Yes, yeah.
Mm.
Just going back to what you said about the challenge to offer, it's been
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. And I'm so amazed that my mind can go, remember, forget, remember. Oh, yeah, remember, forget.
Uh, uh,
But the remembering every time the little sentence of offering, I can feel absolute relaxation inside, absolute opening and relaxation inside. And it was making the bed, doing the washing up, driving somewhere. It's quite interesting that when you're in the process of talking to somebody, to have that thought of offering the same time. That
uh-huh.
it's sort
Yeah.
of like in between sentences, there it was, but as soon as it's been a joy.
I
I've
hear you.
absolutely
I
loved
hear
it.
you. Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
passed it on to a couple of people that I know because there was
Oh,
something
beautiful.
sort of humble. There is something very humble about that, isn't there? Just going,
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, I offer this, I offer this, I offer this, and it's
It's it's like maybe this is what you're getting at with the humble sensation. It's almost sometimes hard for me to believe that I can do everything. Like if I'm making the bed, as you said, or making coffee for myself, it's like almost unbelievable when I go, oh, I could do that as an offering. I could actually make that an offering. It's like, okay, cool, sure, yeah, why not? That's kind of how I feel about it.
and I think it makes the connection. It's immediate. It's so immediate, the connection. Like if you ever thought, oh, I haven't sat quietly for ages, getting my connection not with just with my inner self, but with this. But that little sentence is so it's like straight to the core, straight to that connection to me.
You're reminding me that it without fail, when I remember when I remember, it makes me slow down. It makes
Right.
me go, oh yeah, there, it adds a layer of thoughtfulness and presence to whatever it is I'm doing. And for me, this past week in my own experience, every time I would remember that, I would just stop what I was doing and just really kind of like what you were. I was reminded to share this when you said, oh, I haven't sat down for ages, that sort of mentality when I'm going and going and going and just doing lots of different things this past week, really, frankly. I would just remember and just usually take a moment to just kind of set that intention to bring that into the next moment. It's fascinating. And I too share the sentiment that it's incredible how many times I can forget and remember. As many times as I forgot, I remembered. And as many times as I remembered, I forgot. That's for sure. But it's not about how many times we forget, it's about how many times we remember, right?
But it's amazing how quick it came in. It was so fascinating that I, I'm, I don't know. I sort of equated it to liking, if you decided you're going to give yourself a vitamin pill or something, I last for about 3 days. Just forget it. It just does not come into my, I can have it there on the table right in front of me and I don't take it because I don't know what it is. I forget. This little sentence I have not forgotten. I've forgotten, and then it comes in, but it's coming more than 10 or 15 times a day, 20
Mm,
times a day.
wow.
And for
Wow.
the loveliest little things, for the pain in my arm that went away, for the driving, for the Robin that spent a bit of time telling me all its news, and the slightest little things. And it's this softest feeling inside. Yeah. Anything that softens, I think, opens that heart up. Just makes life so sort of basic and simple without any drama.
I'm curious, are you or your father left-handed painters?
Yes, me, I am, and my son. And
Guess
my
what?
dear auntie, is one of my old, we meditate together and we talk about this together. And
Wow.
my dad's sister, so she's left-handed, I'm left-handed, my son's left-handed. My dad was right-handed, but he had to
Uh,
learn to be left-handed because his stroke, he lost the use of his right hand. And
okay.
he invented a whole new um, writing style.
Well, so here's another
So
little
what's made you
synchronicity. Yeah, so here's another little synchronicity for you. Which I guess from some level it's not a surprise because apparently left-handed people are more creative from what I've heard. But anyway, my direct family, my mother, my father, and me are all left-handed. And then my sister, she's the odd one out. She's the right-handed one. And my uncle, who I just read to you about, he's right-handed as well. But me and my direct nuclear
right?
family, we're all lefties.
Yeah.
And yeah, so for whatever reason, I was getting the feeling like I bet she's left-handed. I bet she's left-handed.
Yeah. And one other sister is left-handed. It's in the family, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it
Not
is
my dad, no.
right in the family.
Yeah.
what's been really present for me the last really, I mean, gosh, the past 8 years of my life, but it's been a lot more present since the conflict in Israel began, well, in early October, is this idea which I've been discussing. I had a phone call 2 days ago. Was that yesterday? Could it have been yesterday? No, 2 days ago, with a young man who has a podcast, and we were talking about what is the best question to ask. And we realized that embedded in trying to figure out what the best question to ask is assumptions that we want that to be for the good, the greatest good of all. Otherwise, that's kind of orienting the direction of discovering the question. And my vote for the best question to ask is, and for him and I, not what is the best question for all human beings to ask. It's for him and I, where would be a good place to start? And he said, how can we live peacefully together? And I argued, I said, no, I think it's what are we essentially? What are we at our most essential fundamental nature? Which to me, the natural byproduct of looking and seeing and knowing in our bones, in our direct experience what we are, that will uh, generate a peaceful world. Whereas his approach was asking, how can we live peacefully together? Um, it just seemed like they were in ways like inversed, which was interesting. And anyway, the quote, I think Wayne Dyer got it from A Course in Miracles, because I've seen it said in various ways in this document called A Course in Miracles. But Wayne Dyer would say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. It was very, very common in the self-development spiritual realms. And I don't know. I can't confidently say that I am absolutely certain. Well, I don't know. I can't confidently say I'm absolutely certain of anything. Maybe just one thing, but I don't know the extent to which that is true. I don't know that I've discovered how true that statement is. I can feel intuitively, there's this intuitive connection with, oh yeah, when I change the way I look at things, the things I look at change. But I don't believe I've fully, let me rephrase that. I'm uncertain if I've recognized and realized the immensity of what is contained in that statement. And as conflicts arise in just in my own thought system, but also in relationships and wider in a global, in a world that it's like, whoa, what's going on here? Uh, I've been coming back to that quite frequently. I mean, it's clearly very essential to what I'm sharing and what I'm doing in groups and one-on-one work, but there's something to me that I feel like I could be robbing myself if I got too exclusively focused on, uh, if I got taken away by, how could I even say this, by what's going on in the quote unquote external world without having realized in a deeper way that, to be cliche and really extrapolate what I'm trying to say here is, oh, if only I just sat with myself for another hour, I would have actually seen it differently versus rushing around um, trying to fix. This is the best fitting analogy I can give to it, and I do feel it's a balance. I feel like I don't feel like it's an either or. I feel like it's a both and. It's because I don't see a difference between the external world and the internal world anyway. It all seems to be, from where I'm sitting, one kind of just one field of whatever this is. That might sound vague, but that's what I've just discovered after lots of practice. And anyway, the analogy I'll kind of end here, at least for now, is the boat that's sinking. There's a bunch of holes in the boat, and I've gotten up from my seat, and I'm trying to plug all of these different holes, like I'm running around, but the boat is still filling with water. And little do I know, if I had only sat down and really looked at the situation, that I could plug the largest hole that was coming up right from the bottom. If only I sat down and looked around and noticed that although these holes from the each side were filling the boat up somewhat with water, the biggest hole was the one that I was sitting on. And actually, it was my getting up to fill up these other holes that was making the boat sink quicker versus if I slowed down and perceived clearly the situation, the entire boat would stop sinking. So, yeah, there's my little ramble.
Can I say something about that as well?
Please, yeah, of course. That's what this
Um,
is for. The floor is open, so.
I had quite a long look at the Course in Miracles, and found a group who went through it. It's an amazing
I'm
thing to
sorry, I
see.
missed what you said. You what went through it?
Oh, I joined a group who would
Okay.
go through different parts of it every week, and
Sure.
it felt as though trying to make sense of it, but actually, what I found when I read it was that you absorbed it. It came in waves. It was such a strange absorption of an energy, I think.
Yeah.
Another lovely book written by somebody called Tom Carpenter, The Dialogue on Awakening.
Hmm.
Just totally. Do you know that one? It's
No, I
Tom
haven't
Carpenter
heard of it.
did a heck of a lot of stuff about the Course in Miracles, and the Tom Carpenter is him
Huh.
channeling Jesus and talking straight through. And there's a sentence in that one which says, "If you now, how does it go? If you come to the place of peace inside yourself, you will not experience war." And there is an experience that I have, and I continue to have, I think. Um, when I spent a lot of time with my mum, and she was a tricky customer as well because she's an Austrian artist, and I know that I used to see her a certain way, and I could hear her criticisms. She was very good at criticisms of people and things and the world. Be a sort of negative sort of person, and I could hear the things that she would say or do. Something in me changed. I went through all sorts of interesting discoveries about myself, and learned a lot of stuff about myself, and did a lot of, I suppose it's work. I don't think it's work. I think it's just living and being. And I know that for the sort of like the end time of being with her, I could not see that in her anymore. And I know people would talk to me and say, "Oh, my sister, my mum was like that then." And I realized I absolutely could not see it. I couldn't hear the words she was saying in any other than loving. I couldn't see her actions as any other than loving. So something changed so fundamentally inside myself that she didn't, I could not, I didn't get that viewpoint anymore at all. And what an amazing change, because our relationship that could then be without this judgment thought of this is how you're behaving, that went out of the way. It was just straight pure communication, absolutely extraordinary. And I know, just from talking to people about life, that I do, because of the changes I've made inside myself, I'm aware of what influences my perspective on things, and I'm aware of knowing that there is a way of looking through the eyes of love at a situation and seeing what looks like a call for love, or love itself. So both sides of love. Um, and I think, so that's what's come out of that for me, is that absolute knowing that, yes, if I change myself, I see somebody in a sort of absolutely different to how I used to see them just because I changed something. What did it change? I don't know. It just appeared. Is it just grace that comes in and shows you the world through the eyes of love? It could be.
I'd like to ask you a question about this experience with your mother, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Did you get the sense that it was the effect of some way of uh, changing interiorly that then you were seeing your mother in a different light and in a different way? Or it's a very subtle question that I have. Or did it almost seem like something was happening for her and she also was simultaneously sort of transforming and becoming more loving and changing too? Or was it more so the former?
Um, well, it was interesting because I had a visit with my partner, this painter partner, going there, and he described what he saw her behavior like. And I realized I used to see that. I used to
Uh-huh,
see it just how he described it. I said, "Oh God, was she being like that? I can't see it anymore."
uh-huh,
I
uh-huh.
couldn't physically see it. I couldn't hear it. I couldn't. I just couldn't hear it, and I don't.
Wow,
It didn't come into my brain.
wow, wow.
Exactly what he was describing. Months before, I would have said yes, exactly. I totally agree
Yeah,
with you. And I say I can't agree with you anymore because I can't hear it. Can't hear it. Can't see it. Can't experience it. I just experience her as being my dear mum, and I love her hugely. And she just feels. I just didn't see it. So it's weird,
incredible.
but
Yeah,
it was so
beautiful. Wow.
profound, and I knew it
It
was
was
going on
what?
because Simon. It was so profound because I knew it was
Yeah.
going on because Simon described exactly what I used to know about her,
Hmm.
felt about her. When you start saying I don't know anything anymore, this is when you know you don't know anything because you just don't know. But I think, yeah, wow, I can see my mum in this, and somebody right next to me hears what I used to hear. I can't hear that. Like the tone of, I don't know what it was, that everything changed. And blessings for me because I got to be with her without my judgment, without my judgment.
Hmm.
Or maybe the judgment left. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's our own judgment that
Right.
creates that
Yeah.
something not perfect for us. And then when that's gone, what is there? There's just what is being. It's that
Yeah.
yes to everything, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes to reality, if it is reality. I mean,
Yes. Yes. You know what I always say. I always say yes to whatever this is,
yes.
whatever the real, like whatever that is. I don't know what it is. Yes. So
But
yeah, it
it's the
reminds me.
I
Oh,
think
go
there's
ahead. Go ahead.
resistance. I think I know what feels like resistance in here. And I
Yeah.
know what feels like judgment because that seems to me this is my irritating friend, the judger, the critic, the ego.
Yeah.
And when that's just not present for those few moments, even if it's just a few moments, wow, all that, all that judgment is gone and somebody can just behave as they behave because that's who they are.
A weight is lifted. A seeming weight is lifted. Yeah. It reminds me of where I think the course, and again, Wayne says this a lot too. No amount of condemnation like solves or fixes anything. It's like,
Mm.
and I'm reminded of that often when I do sometimes feel this judging voice coming in. I'm like, that's not gonna help anyone. And then the subtle thing, I don't fall into this too much anymore, is then being hard on myself for like that. Well, why would you be thinking about something that's not going to help anyone, Christopher? This The judge starts taking on different forms that are subtler and
That's
subtler to
exactly
try
it.
and get me to
That's
buy
what I
into
feel.
it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
you're
yeah.
not gonna fool me.
Like, I do catch myself, listening to my partner and say, wow, you're being so judging. And I go, oops.
Right? It's like, who's the joke on when we say that? Goodness gracious.
So,
Oh wow.
yeah,
Well, I'm really grateful that you were here live with me today, Becca. Thank you for coming on.
I'm really grateful to have come across you, Christopher, and to be able to talk about this subject, which to me is what life is. And I think your question is the one. It's what is this? I started off with the who am I, but to me, as soon as I've got a who in my head, it starts making a person, and I'm coming behind the person. So what is this?
Yeah.
What is this?
What is yeah, and that's I had a similar process. It's more, even the who am I, it almost is, there's some assumptions built in. There's
Yeah,
already the identity. It's like, well,
that's
wait a minute, that's going a little bit too far. Let's just, what
come
is
back, come back, come back.
whatever this is? What is it?
What is this? I don't know, or
Yeah,
just even as yeah, because so what am I? You could go, but then I think there is a place that you can. Place is the wrong word. All of these things are the wrong word for what in
yeah,
here or
yeah.
beyond. Um, that hasn't. The I is not as important. There is a here that feels like it has a location.
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of.
I call it sometimes suchness or thatness, the felt
Resistance,
quality of whatever
suchness.
this is.
Yeah, I did.
Well, go
Have you
ahead.
got time, or is we got to stop?
I am gonna be hopping off in the next several minutes, about 3 or 4 minutes from now. But if there's some kind of
Just
closing remark you'd
was
like to share.
a little experience, and I think it might have been just after I listened to your last one, and I really felt that experience of it was the absolute seeing or knowing of this not being of this location of this being completely um not singular, so not other, so there's just no, yeah, so not even singular, not even, I can't explain it. I'll try and I'll see if I can do it next time. Because it was so beautiful, and I just got it, and it went right. So the minute you're looking at another person, this is what they are. This is they're in there too. This is them. I got it. It was like the big aha, and of course it's so flipping misty.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, it almost seemed like you were going to say not singular, but also not two, right? And
That's
that's
it. Not two, but
non-dual.
not.
That's literally not two, non-dual. That's what the definition of
It was
non-duality means.
all. Yeah, it
Not
was just
two.
all. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I'm really grateful and happy to hear that. I want to share with you. I don't know if you've come across this on my channel, but I also have a podcast it's on Apple and it's on Spotify, and it's called Unspeakable Bliss. And the reason why I call it Unspeakable Bliss is because, it's funny. It's a podcast where I talk about
So
that
can
which
I get, where could I come across that then? Because I've got very basic technology, which is not.
on your computer, you can go onto Spotify or Apple, what is it? Apple Podcasts, and you could find, even if you just type in Google or whatever search engine you have,
Yeah.
Unspeakable Bliss, it populates on like 5 different platforms, so it's on more than just.
Was that the
So
one
yeah,
you did with Anna Brown?
oh yeah, that was cross posted. I posted that on my channel and also
That was lovely.
on the
Yeah.
podcast too. Yeah, that was a good one. It was fun. Um, anyway, I'm actually off to another wake service for a
Oh,
dear friend of my fiance's family. So
oh,
another reminder of this transitory nature of whatever this is. Uh, Two things. First one, for anybody on the recording as well that feels called to contribute to the Source Simplified meetings, in the description to the recording of this video is the different ways you can do that. I'm offering one-time sessions for this. You could also make a donation. And of course, your presence is what makes this come alive. So you are invited. Everyone is invited to this meeting. If you watch this YouTube video, if you just go down to the description, you'll see the same Zoom link. So Becca, just so you know, same Zoom link. And next week, we'll be moving back to Saturday. So this meeting was on Sunday because of my uncle's service yesterday. But next week, it will be Saturday, same time, same Zoom link. And I believe the next contemplation for between this week and next week, it will be this very thing that Becca and I finished with, which is an invitation into the contemplation in any moment, especially the moments where it could be challenging. And we're starting to embed it just right now, which is, what is this? Because whatever this is, especially if it's something that feels challenging or triggering, the whole point is it might not be what we think it is, but our thoughts and our emotions are sort of clouding that. So the contemplation for this week, last week we did this spontaneous idea together of making an offering to life. Of course, if you want to do that and continue that for the rest of your life, that's welcome. I'm just talking about for Source Simplified, the next 7 days. The contemplative offering is looking in every moment that we can, asking, what is this, in a curious way, not looking for an answer, just asking and then seeing what comes up. So thank you for being here live, Becca. Feel free to invite friends or family or anyone else that you think might enjoy this. I'm
thank
going to
you.
keep doing it
Yeah,
weekly, and I
it was
appreciate you
lovely.
being here.
Thank you very much. It's so interesting and you know, inspiring.
The Lord
Awesome.
works in mysterious ways, they say, right?
Wonderful. Yeah, all the best with the next one, and you know,
Thank you so much. All the best to you. God bless.
bye bye.
Till next time. Peace.
See you.